Okay.
Is that it now?
Yeah, it's on.
My granddaughter there is very much interested in some of the things that happened in the early life of our family.
That the crazy Britons did.
There is one, I told her a story, one story, that if anybody should hear it and call me a liar, I would not in the least be offended. Because it's the most improbable thing you ever heard. But I have been convinced that it is true. It brings on some heroism on the part of my father and after his grandfather, which is also true. They were a sturdy old bunch way back there, and they could do things like this. But anyway, I don't know how much of you know anything about it, but in the old days, when we had to provide our meat, meal, everything but coffee and sugar that we ate, we raised our own hogs and butchered them, our own corn and ground. Now it was a custom in the late fall to turn the hogs loose in any woods that were near the place where we lived, and let them live on acorns and what a lot of people call mass. And you wouldn't believe it, but they'll get on a good bit of meat, a good bit of weight from eating that stuff. And that was the custom. Our family who lived in an isolated section of the country right by a big swamp, turned their hogs loose in that swamp in the late fall. But they also didn't want those hogs to wander off, so they'd go down there at stated periods and scatter feed on the ground so that the hogs wouldn't wander off. They'd come back later in the year when they wanted to take them in now and butcher them. They'd take them in and feed them on corn for a few weeks, and then they'd be ready to butcher, and you'd have a fine piece of meat. Well, they had their hogs out, and some of them told the boys, two uncles of mine and my father, whose name was William Travis Britton. They told them to take some corn and put it on a mule, strap it on a mule, and take it down the swamp and feed the hogs. They had a pack of hounds that they thought a great deal of. You got a fresh tape on that?
Uh-uh.
Well, is it time to go to another one?
Oh, no, we got a ways to go.
They had a pack of hounds that they were very fond of. One in particular was a young red bone about 6 months old. It was just running along with the pack. And these dogs, customarily, boys about that age, followed them down in the swamp. Followed them nearly everywhere, but they followed them down in the swamp on this occasion. And as they went to put the food out, the dogs hit something, started running something way down below them in the swamp. And as they just about got the last of the feed out, they came in sight. And they were running a great big black cat-like animal with a long tail, fiery eyes, snarling at every jump. The boys had never seen anything like that before. But this thing ran up right across the slough from where they were. And the dogs baited up under up between, well, there was 3 trees that made a kind of a triangle.
Mm-hmm.
And he backed up in there and bayed. And the hounds came up on him. And this little 6-year-old puppy didn't have no better sense. He ran up on him and that thing just made a puff out of him.
Oh.
Just tore him up.
Oh.
And he also created a bunch of real mad boys.
I bet he did.
That doggone thing done killed our puppy.
Mm-hmm.
What are we gonna do about it? One said, I don't know about that, but said, I tell you what we can do, said we can kill him.
Mm-hmm.
He said, how we gonna do that? All right, you take this pole, he had a deadwood pole made out of hickory or something stout. And you take this pole, and he's fighting the dogs, he ain't gonna notice us. And we slip up behind him. And you come down just hard as you know, right in between his ears. And you gonna stun him anyhow, but you might knock him out. And when you do, my daddy had a knife, he prided himself in keeping sharp.
Mm-hmm.
It's as sharp as I don't know what. And he said, well, I'll reach around the tree and cut his throat. So, all right, here we go. Now, you know that may sound foolhardy, but I've seen boys do things just as foolhardy too. And I may have taken part in some at one time or another. But it was a very foolhardy thing. But that boy walked up behind him and hit him right hard with that great big pole about big as your arm.
Mm-hmm.
Right between the ears, from behind. And when he did momentarily stun the thing or knocked him out. And his head slumped down a little bit. I think it was my daddy, one of the boys, reached around the tree with that sharp knife and hit him and come right down across his throat and cut his jugular vein.
Mm-hmm.
And then they both had business somewhere else. They ran like nobody's business. But they got away from there and stood off and looked.
Uh-huh.
And the thing died right there, just cut his throat, it just killed him. That's what it does, it just drains the blood out.
Yuck.
So they went back and got the thing and brought him up to the mule. Now that's the one thing about it that a lot of folks would doubt, but I have never been able to figure in my own mind how they got that thing on that mule's back before they scared to death of him. But you got 4 boys that killed a mountain lion with a knife, so I reckon they got him somehow or another. But they say that when they got him across the mule's back and tied him on there, that his nose reached the ground on one side of the mule and his tail reached the ground on the other side of the mule.
Oh, Lord.
As they took him home.
Uh-huh.
Well, boys were hard in those days. Didn't anybody get punished for it.
Uh-huh.
But there was a circus somewhere near around, and just one of the little wandering circuses. And they took the thing to the circus and asked the man what it was, the running circus. And he told him that he was right, that it was, I don't know what he said, a mountain lion or some other cat of some size, but either one of them would be bad enough in my judgment. That was told. And everybody, I heard it up to a certain stage, would snicker and laugh and don't believe it. Well, there was these particular uncles of my daddy, If he had told me the earth was coming to an end, I'd believed it. They just didn't tell lies. And but I believed it, but I don't think anybody else did, and I don't much blame them if they didn't. But let's take a little aftermath on that. My uncle, who lived in Mobile, would come up every year and go bud hunting. And my dad and I took him. And he was quite a man. He was, I thought a lot of him. And one of the things he would want on each one of those trips was that they make a trip back to the old country, back where they were boys, right up where the whole old house was gone, but the old site was there, and some of the old folks were around. Well, I was the youngest in the outfit, so I had to drive, and I drove them over there. Well, the old house site on top, tall hill, and I had already seen just what was some old foundations there. The house was off, so I didn't go. I stayed in the car. And my granddaughter said, "I'm good at that. Let somebody else do the running around and sit in the car," which I reckon I am. But anyhow, I was sitting there, and I looked on the side of the road, and that was the worst-looking human apparition I ever saw in my life. An old colored man, and he absolutely looked like a mummy. He was so old. His skin was wrinkled. And I said, "How you do, Uncle? How is you, white folks?" I said, "Well, what's your name?" And when he said, "My name is William Britton," I almost fell out of the seat. I said, "Your name is William Britton? My name is Britton. How'd you get that?" Well, so he said it was like this. Back in the old days, it was slavery times. And when they brought us over here and said, we didn't have no name, like they got in this country. And so we just took our boss man name. And at that time, your grandpa owned me. I was his slave. And said, I just took his name. His name was William Holman Britton. Well, no, Daniel Holman Britton. Daniel Holman Britton. There's been 3 or 4 more of them since then. But that was his name. And this old dog, he just took William Britton for his name. And then I thought, here's a possible clue I can get about the lion story. So I said, "William, do you remember anything about some of these boys killing a mountain lion with a pocket knife?" "Oh, yes, sir, I remember it." I said, "Where was it?" He said, "It was down here in the woods, right down here below the house." I said, "You know who did it?" "Yes, sir, yes, sir." He told me. I said, "Well," he said, "now, there was a tree where they hit him and cut him. And they all went there and cut the initials on there with the knife." He said, "But a lumber company come in there and bought that up and cut that tree down and took it off. And so it ain't there." He said, "But I tell you, white folks, if you wanna know, sir, there's a man in Birmingham that has got a paw, or that lion, he got it preserved, and he got that paw. But I come up right after it happened and saw it." I said, "Are you lying to me?" "No, sir." I come up here and I saw it with my own eyes. At that time, Papa and them came back. I give the old man the $1. You go buy your plug of tobacco. I give him $1, and we parted company. But he just about cinched the veracity of that, because he had no motive to lie. He wasn't going to get nothing out of lying. He just telling something as he saw it. And he told it like the boys did.
That's gross.
Huh?
Killing it with a pocket knife?
My daddy's pocket knife.
I believe he did it.
Huh?
I believe he did it. I just think it's gross.
He didn't have no ghost.
Oh.
You feel that?
Yeah.
I could split his head off with it and hit it from like that.
Uh-huh.
Now the other one, I keep in better shape just when I want a real sharp edge.
Uh-huh.
Now that'll cut through anything.
Uh-huh.